Om Jnana-timirandhasya Jnananjana-shalakaya Chakshurunmilitam Yena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha.
Vraja means the place of cows. Specifically, it means the place of cows, which is, from our external vision, at the present time situated in the Mathura district of Uttar Pradesh. And this is specifically Nandasya Rajaha. This is Nanda Maharaja's cow herding ground. He's the king. He's known as Nanda Maharaj. He's Vaishya, but he's known as the king because he's the leader of the Vaishya community there. Vaishyas, their business is Krishi, Goraksha, Vanijam. Agriculture, cow protection, and trade. We have that word in modern Gujarati or Hindi, Vanya. So that comes from the Sanskrit word Vanijya. Vanijya means trade. Vanya means merchant. So among these three occupations of the Vaishya, Goraksha, protection of the cows, is considered most important because cow protection is central to Vedic culture. Any follower of Vedic culture must respect the cows. Now that helps them. Even if they're Mayavadis, they all have any Mayavadi, at least in the traditional sampradayas, they will respect cows. So that will help them because Krishna is fond of cows. He's known as Gopal, Govinda, Go Brahmana Hitaya Cha. Go Brahmana Hitakari. He does good and he likes to see the cows and Brahmanas are benefited. In one purport, Prabhupada says that Krishna is known as Go Brahmana Hit. He likes to see the benefit of the cows and the Brahmanas, but of the two, the cows are more important. We have here so many Kapila, means brown cows. So they're supposed to be according to Shastra, they're the most auspicious cows. Dark brown color, as we have here. So Nanda Maharaj, he is a Vaishya. This is Nandasya Braja. This is his Braja. Sometimes we hear of Vrindavaneshwari or Brajeshwari for short. So that means either Radharani or Yashoda. She's also known as Brajeshwari. She's known as Brajeshwari because she's the wife of Nanda Maharaj, who is the ruler or overlord of Brajabhumi, this place where the cows are protected. So all very nicely getting ready for the appearance of Krishna. Now that Brajabhumi, that is eternally the residence of Krishna. Krishna has appeared in Vrindavana. But actually, Krishna is always in Vrindavana. Vrindavanam parittarja ekam padam gacchati. Krishna never goes out of Vrindavana even by one step, we are told. So there's no question of Krishna not being in Vrindavana, and there's no question of Vrindavana not being full of sarva samriddhi, samriddhiman. Riddhi means opulence. Samriddhi means full exhibition of opulence. So Vrindavan here is described here as sarva samriddhi man. So full sarva samriddhi, giving full emphasis that all opulence is in full in all ways became present in Vrindavan. And Vrindavan is always fully opulent. But with Krishna's appearance there, then that opulence became manifested for everyone to see. Otherwise, Vrindavan is always the place of the goddess of fortune, Rama. Rama Akriram, the place where Rama, the goddess of fortune, performs her pastimes. Lakshmi Sahasra Shata Sambrama Sevyamanam. Krishna is always served with hundreds and thousands of Lakshmis, or goddesses of fortune, in the land of Vraja. Actually not, when we say Rama, Lakshmi, Shri, these are names for Lakshmi, who is Vaikuntana Patni. She is the wife of Vaikuntana, Narayana. And actually, she can't enter into the pastimes of Krishna as the gopis in the same way. It's described in the Puranas that she wanted to. She wanted to join the Rasa Krira, Rasa Lila, but she couldn't do it, despite performing austerities, because there's no way to enter the pastimes of the intimate pastimes of Krishna with the gopis by performing austerities. That is not the method. You can perform austerities as much as you like, even if you are Lakshmi. But the process is to be Gopi Anugatya, to follow in the footsteps of the gopis. Gopi Anugatya vina aishvarya bhave bhajaleho napai gopi bhave. That verse is there in Chaitanya Charitamrita. Oh no, I didn't remember it properly. But the essence is there. It says Gopi Anugatya vina. If without following in the footsteps of the gopis, if one has aishvarya bhav, the mood of thinking of Krishna in awe and reverence, then even if you worship Krishna, you don't get the position of the gopis. It's not possible, even for Lakshmi. So here it said, Rama Akriram, the place of pastimes for the goddess of fortune. So the purport, Prabhupada has given the purport that this Rama here indicates that the supreme goddess of fortune, Adi Lakshmi. When we say Adi Lakshmi, we usually think of the form of Lakshmi with Vishnu, but really the Adi Lakshmi is Radharani, because she's the source of all the Lakshmi forms. Just like from Krishna, all the Vishnu forms emanate. Krishna and Balaram, from Balaram come all the jivas, that's one direction. And then comes Vasudev, Sankarshan, Pradyumna, Aniruddha, the first Chaturvyuha, and Narayana, and then another Chaturvyuha, and all this, all the incarnations who appear in this material world, they appear through the agency of the Purush. That means the Purusha avatars, Karadakshay Vishnu, Garbhadakshay Vishnu, Kshiradakshay Vishnu. So Krishna is the source of all the avatars and all the jivas. Aham sarvasya prabhavo matas sarvam prabhatate. Everything comes from Krishna, everyone comes from Krishna. The female principle, who is non-different from Krishna, Shakti Shaktimata Abheda. The Shakti means the female principle, and the Shakti Mata, Shaktiman, the male principle. They're non-different because they're inseparable. The source of power and the power itself, they're inseparable. There's no meaning to be a source of power if there's no power. And power cannot exist without a source. So in this way they're inseparable. Still they're defined as Shakti and Shaktiman. So Shakti means the original Shakti, or energetic expansion of Krishna, is Radharani. And from her, all the Lakshmis expand, all the Gopis expand, then the Dwaraka, Mahishis, they're all expansions of Radharani. So here, Rama, the goddess of fortune. Rama, this name suggests enjoyment. Ramante yogino nante sattanam chiratmani iti Rama padena. So, Param Brahmanandiyate. The absolute truth is known as Rama. Because the yogis, they take pleasure in thinking of Rama, considering Rama. So that this word gives the idea of pleasure, just like Krishna is known as Radha Raman, Gopi Raman, Rukmini Raman. These are names of Krishna, who enjoys Radha, or who gives pleasure. Either he's enjoying, or he's being enjoyed by, or he's giving pleasure. Pleasure, the idea of pleasure is there. To Radha, the Gopis, Rukmini. And we also have Janaki Raman, name for Rama, enjoyer of Janaki, Sita Raman. These are common names even today. We have such names. So this suggests his name is given Rama. There are many names of Lakshmi. Rama is a common name. So this Vrindavan became the place of pastimes of the goddess of fortune. That specifically indicates that Radha will appear. Krishna doesn't go outside of Vrindavan, that is said. That means we hear of Krishna's pastimes in Dwarka, Mathura. Sometimes he goes to Hastinapur, Indraprastha, so many places. Krishna also went to city of Kashi. He went to Kundina, it's now in Maharashtra. Still that area is called Vidarbha. Rukmini's name, Vidarbha Kanya, the young girl of Vidarbha. So many places Krishna visited. But that was in his, not his original feature, in his Vasudev form. Vasudev means who's known as the son of Vasudeva. But in Vrindavan, Krishna is not known as Vasudeva. He is known as Nanda, Yashodananda. Outside of Vrindavan, Krishna may be known as Vasudev Nanda, Vasudeva, or Devaki Nanda, Devaki Sut. But in Vrindavan, they don't know who is Devaki, who is Vasudeva. They know Krishna, Govinda, Gopala. Even outside Vrindavan, Krishna is sometimes called Govinda, Gopala, Hari, Damoda. These names are also given. You'll find Krishna is addressed by these names even outside Vrindavan, in his pastimes outside Vrindavan. But Govinda, of course, that means who is giver of pleasure not only to the cows but to the land and the senses. So that applies to his pastimes outside Vrindavan. And also within Dwarka, undoubtedly so many cows must have been there also, because any city, if it's any auspicious place, must have cows. There's no question of building a city, at least in India in those days. Of course, Dwarka wasn't exactly in India, just off the coast. But there must be cows. But Krishna wasn't himself personally looking after cows, because he was in Kshatriya Bhav. He was acting as a Kshatriya. And Krishna is known as Govinda, Gopala, Damoda. Damoda pastime that takes place specifically in Vrindavan. But even when he goes outside Vrindavan, he may be called Damoda, Giridhari, remembering those pastimes. But Nanda Krishna, he's only in Vrindavan. So if he's in Vrindavan, so what's he doing in Vrindavan? Vrindavan, especially his pastimes are with the Brajavasis. Different quality of pastime to his pastimes elsewhere. Especially within Vrindavan, everything is special. Sarva Samriddhiman. Full of special opulences which are not seen elsewhere. But over and above everything else, the speciality of Vrindavan is that Radhe Vrindavaneshwari, Radharani is there, which according to Bhagavatam, she also goes outside to meet, she went outside to meet Krishna at Kurukshetra. And also from Garga Samhita we have information that Radharani and so many gopis of Vrindavan, they sometimes used to go to meet Krishna in Dwarka. But generally, even if Krishna may appear to go outside Vrindavan, but Radharani, that she's not going outside. She's staying there. So therefore, Krishna, he's also staying there. Staying in Vrindavan. Which is a place of extraordinary pastimes. Just yesterday I was speaking with one man from Bangalore. So he knows Narayana, but not Krishna. Now they don't know Krishna, but they're particularly attached to Narayana, Balaji. And his wife is from a family attached with the Mata, Mantralaya, Raghavendra Swami. So she's attracted to Krishna. So she got one book and she saw the Atma TV program, and just from that she started chanting 16 rounds and everything, offering her food, rising at 4 o'clock and all these things. But he's not against, but he says, we know Narayana. But actually, Krishna is Narayana. There's no difference. But within there being no difference, there is also the difference that Krishna has some wonderful qualities which even Narayana doesn't have. That Narayana, he is worshipped in great awe and reverence. But Krishna, he's not worshipped in awe and reverence, which may seem that he's less than Narayana. This is the mistake. That even Lord Brahma, he thought, who is this Krishna, this little boy running around with bare feet? Running around? What is this? Sometimes other little boys, they're just village boys, they're stealing his lunch packet. Then they sit to eat. And one boy is eating something, he says, this is nice. And he takes one bite and says, here, Krishna, taste this, it tastes pretty good. This is not proper culture. You can't do in the middle of eating something, you can't just take something off your plate and give to someone else, although I know someone who does that regularly. So that's not proper culture. How can you do that? And sometimes you see the gopis are calling Krishna bad names. Lampata. That every day you're reciting this verse. That Radharani is saying to Krishna, I know you're a lampa. I know you're a debauchee. It's not a very good word to call someone. There are so many bad words. What is that word they say in Hindi? Dogra? Dogla means bastard. You don't know that word? It's a bad word. It's a bad word. It means a bastard child. Anyway, maybe I didn't hear it properly. But anyway, there are so many bad words. You don't say that to someone respectable. In America, you might go up to the president and call him all bad words. And now everywhere they have cartoons ridiculing people who are supposed to be respectable. But that's not Vedic culture. Vedic culture, you don't make a cartoon in the newspaper. You don't make some caricature of the king and make him look stupid. No, it's absolutely not done. If you do it, you'll get your head cut off anyway. There's no question of doing it. But that respectable person is not to be disrespected. And now, who is more respectable than God? He's the most respectable. Narayana. Om Namo Narayana. With great respect, he is to be worshipped. But we see that in Vrindavan, there's not that much respect for Krishna. There's a lot of love for Krishna, unlimited love for Krishna, but not in a very respectful way. So even Lord Brahma, he says, Lakshmi Sahasrashata Sambrahma Sevyamana. The Lakshmis, they're serving with great respect. That's his vision. He sees the gopis as Lakshmis. And so he can't imagine serving with anything but respect. But the gopis, why Krishna likes them more? Because they don't serve him with respect. They're disrespectful. That, of course, is on the transcendental platform. There's a difference between an atheist disrespecting God and the intimate devotees, because that disrespect, that is on the platform of the highest love. There's a lot of difference. That's why we cannot imitate. Imitation of the intimate pastimes, that is a great mistake by which one falls down. If Radharani calls Krishna bad names, Krishna enjoys. If we call Krishna bad names, then it's not. There's Radha, and Radha's external manifestation, Durga. So we'll come under the punishment of Durga. She has 10 hands with different weapons, and they're all meant for people who do things like disrespecting the personality of Godhead. So that is something very intimate. That is not to be understood by everybody, and that's also not meant for public distribution. Nowadays, again, in the press, they have this whole thing of everything should be public. That's why you'll find even the royal families who are considered most respectable, the press wants to find out any news, how they're arguing among themselves. That's supposed to be kept private. There's not proper culture that it's understood that wherever there are living beings, there will be some misunderstanding. That is inevitable. But that private affair is private. It's not meant for broadcasting to everybody. It's only low-class people who gossip. We hear that Rama, he went disguised and he heard. Which class of person was that complaining about his wife? That was some washerman. Low-class person. Low-class people, it means he was complaining about his wife and comparing to Rama. See, I'm not like Rama, his wife was living away from home and then he took him back. I'm not like that, you get out of it. So that is the business of low-class people, to make some gossip and talk about others and see their bad qualities and broadcast it everywhere. This respectable people, they keep their disagreements private. Their intimate affairs, that is private. Just like it's understood why people get married. Well, there may be different reasons, but one of the main reasons is to engage in sex life. But that's not supposed to be talked about. And nowadays they have the different film stars will talk about and discuss their private lives. That goes on. Otherwise, how are children being born? It's definitely going on. But it's not something for everyone to discuss. It's a private affair. It's public life and private life. In the modern age, they want to make there's no distinction. Everything should be public. But Krishna, you can say, this is Narayan, his private life, is Krishna. Or actually that is his most cherished life. The Prime Minister may have so many duties and so many public affairs, and he also enjoys them. But he wouldn't enjoy in the same way if he didn't have any family, children. That's his best enjoyment. That gives him more pleasure. All day the Prime Ministers, of course in the modern age nowadays, they're mostly listening to so many people with insult. Modern politics means the opposition, they'll all insult you like anything. And your own party, especially in India, it's all sycophants. You know what sycophant means? They're simply praising you, and you're so wonderful, and Jai Lalita waddles into town, and people offer her full obeisances. Sonia, all the people, oh, how wonderful, how good. They weren't doing it before. When she became chairwoman of the Congress party, then all of a sudden people started to praise her, and they suddenly discovered what a wonderful person she is, and that there's nothing better than to praise her upside down, inside out. Although they weren't praising her before. But suddenly when she came to the Congress position, head of the party, and then the Congress people are praising her. And similarly, the opposition parties, they weren't blaming her. They didn't care. As long as she was a housewife, let her be a housewife. But all of a sudden, when she becomes a pretender to the throne, pretender to the kursi of the prime ministership of India, and all of a sudden they're blaming her like anything. But, as I was saying, in traditional life, when there's a Raja, when there's a king, there's no such thing. There's no opposition party. If there is, they have to do it in secret because they'll get smashed. That's the position. There's one Raja, he's in charge. Keeps power, keeps control. So there's only praise. There's no such thing as allowing the opposition and democracy and everyone should have their opinion. The Raja rules the country, and if you don't like it, you go to another country. Or you try to make a revolution, and if you succeed and you become the king, otherwise you get your head cut off. That's all. That's the system. Raja, ruled by a king. So all day the king may be listening, actually from the very beginning of his day. The Raja, you can imagine what false egos they must have. How do they begin their day? They're woken up, not with some watchman tuck, tuck, tuck on the door, but they're woken up with music and then some poetry praising the qualities of the king. All day they have to listen. They have a lot of work also. It's no easy job to be a king. But people are praising them. It's all formal and official. Maharaj ki jai ho, if you see the Mahabharata there. When any king, whether it's Kamsa or Ugrasena, whoever happens to be on the throne, then Maharaj ki jai ho, Maharaj ki jai ho. It's all very formal. So he likes that. If he didn't like it, he wouldn't be the king. He could also go to the forest, become a yogi. So he likes that. But he likes more when he goes home and his children play with him. Prabhupada told a story, very nice story, of Gladstone, the Prime Minister of Great Britain, when it was great. When he was Prime Minister in the time of Victoria, means Prime Minister of the whole British Empire, the biggest empire the world has seen since the time of Maharaja Janamajaya. So one man had an appointment to see him. He was sitting on a chair outside his office. So he was waiting and waiting and waiting, and he was thinking, I wonder what he's doing. He's the Prime Minister of the whole British Empire. Must be very busy. Must be some. I wonder whether he's discussing about sending a gunship here and there. That was the British policy. If anyone disagreed with them, they would send one gunship because the British Empire was built on naval power, because their navy was more strong than anyone else. They were way ahead of anyone else. So anyone disagreed with them, just like in China, they didn't want to cooperate, so they sent a gunship and blasted the Chinese used to keep this like tied up, blasted the shikas to pieces, and then the Chinese had to agree. So is he discussing where to send a gunship? Or is he discussing how to cut off the thumbs of the weavers in Bengal? Or probably he didn't discuss. That was just left up to the Viceroy. What's he discussing? Big things. Important things. So he looked. Let me have a look and see. Maybe I won't get my appointment, but maybe I should see what Mr. Daniel Gladstone, the head of the British Empire, is doing. So he looked. There were no guards around. So he peeked in the door, slowly opened the door and peeked in, and there he saw Prime Minister Gladstone, the head of the British Empire, on the floor on his hands and knees, with his young boy, his grandson, sitting on his back saying, "Gee up, get up, horse." So the Prime Minister of the British Empire had become a horse. Why? Why should he do that? No doubt he had so many important things to do. But sometimes he likes to play with his grandson. And he becomes subordinate to the grandson in some game. That is his game. Gee up, that's what you say to a horse. It means get up.
Giddy up.
Giddy up, okay. In England it's gee up.
Our pronunciation is language change.
So like that, Prabhupada gave this example. Krishna in Vrindavan, he's powerful above everyone, but he enjoys being subordinate to his devotees. So that's also not for public. Mr. Gladstone won't do that in the House of Commons. If his grandson comes, he won't get down on his hands and knees in the House of Commons. He'll maintain his decorum. That's another reason why the Vrajavasis, they stay in Vrindavan. Otherwise, how can he be Vasudev? How can he go on with his pastimes, his other pastimes, for maintenance of the world, if he's in the Vrindavan mood? So there's a certain place for those pastimes. That is Nandasya Vraja. That is the place of Nanda Maharaj, the cowherd arena. So he doesn't perform those pastimes elsewhere. Just like Gladstone, he doesn't get down on his hands and knees to become a horse in the House of Commons. But only when he's privately alone with his own devotees. So this, actually, it's very intimate. It's not for everyone. It's not for discussion with everyone. Daniel Gladstone won't discuss when he goes to a meeting of all the different prime ministers of different countries. He's not going to discuss with them, oh, I love my grandson so much, he gets on my back. They also have their grandsons, but they don't discuss like that. There's a time and place for everything, even for God. He can do whatever he likes whenever he likes. But to preserve the sweetness of that intimacy, he performs those pastimes in Nandasya Vraja. I didn't even come to the point of the Sarva Samriddhiman, how the opulence of Vrindavan. But anyway, there's unlimited opulence to Krishna's pastimes in so many ways. So, as the power's gone off, I'll finish there and Hare Krishna. Any question? Please.
I have a question which is totally very different.
Does anyone have any question relevant to the class, first of all?
I just came, I don't know.
No, I'm saying, first of all, but I'm saying if anyone does have a question which is relevant to the class, then we should discuss that first. Otherwise, we go off on a tangent. But it doesn't look like there is anyway, so.
What is the name of the Prime Minister?
Name of
Prime Minister
of Britain at that time, at the present time, his name is Tony Blair. But at that time was Daniel Gladstone.
Daniel Gladstone.
Gladstone. Real Victorian name.
We need an English lesson. There is some.
And his big rival was Disraeli, who was a Jew.
But he became Prime Minister.
He was the Prime Minister, yeah. They were, because he was more friends with Victoria because he knew how to flatter her. Whereas Gladstone was he didn't like her much.
The Prime Ministers became Prime Minister by appointment? Or
by vote. No, at that time there were votes, but women didn't get the vote till later.
But Victoria was the Queen.
She was the Queen, yeah.
That's a funny thing.
And then there was Florence Nightingale, who was unheard of. She left home and went to the Crimea.
Oh, they had such immorality.
There was no such thing, but she became glorified for doing.
Were the marriages arranged in England?
I don't know. I don't think so. In Ireland, up until recently, you were supposed to get your parents' permission. You couldn't get married without your parents' permission. Until about a generation ago, there were still cases if someone got married without their parents' permission, their parents would just reject them.
They would
Disown them, yeah.
Well,
nowadays, Ireland is as fallen as anywhere else in the world now. When the Blue videos started coming in, then everything changed.
Which Blue videos?
Blue movie videos, yeah.
But in
Sicily, now in Italy is completely fallen.
Sicily is different from Italy.
Yeah, they're different culture. Different culture, yeah. They're even more Italian than the Italians. Don't say that to a Sicilian; they'll shoot you. They're more British than the British. More loony than the British.
Sarva Samriddhiman and Rama Krida Abhun are saying that Nanda...
Opulence, yeah, that's why I didn't get to, yeah.
But if you say Rama Krida means Radharani, that's a very...
It's an esoteric understanding.
The direct meaning of if you look at the direct...
Yeah. That's that. Means it became very opulent.
We can't imagine now because the government policy is to make the cities opulent and the people in the villages are wretched. Anyone who lives in the village is wretched. We were talking yesterday, I forget where, but in every village, wherever people, even every village now has some relative in the city. And there's this mass exodus to the cities. And in the last 25 years since I came to India, since you came to India, the population shift has been remarkable.
And it's going on.
10% of people were living in the cities and now it's 45, 50 or maybe 50.
And now they lift the land ceiling, so there's going to get like in the West where they have huge farms which are run by machines with a few people, just like America.
I mean, it's very much against the welfare of the ordinary persons.
Another reason they're so poor in the village is because of government policy. They fix the price. The government fixed the prices for the produce.
Well, they're supposed to be support prices because they've rigged the whole economy
with fertilizer and everything.
The industry
itself. Yeah.
And the whole idea of industry was just to make more and more business. And business existed for thousands of years without industry.
And people were rich. Why were the British, the Danish, the Portuguese, the Dutch, the French, they were all coming around to India? They came around Africa, missing Africa to come to India, because India was so rich. So rich, yeah. But their riches was, they had gold, jewels, not bank balance, paper money in the bank. Gold, jewels, silk, profuse milk products.
Spices.
They could throw at each other.
Grains, spices, land.
Dhanavan, 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 Dhanyavan, Dhanavan. That Prabhupada used to quote that. Who has got grains and who has got cows. They are rich. It's
hard to conceptualize how it used to be when you don't see it now. Some people were poor. Like, for instance, Shudras were not supposed to have any money.
Well, there were rich Shudras also.
Oh.
Not this time, but in the last few hundred years, there were well-to-do Shudras who owned land and,
Like I asked them.
They owned land and had businesses also. They all got mixed up. By caste, they'd be a Shudra, but by vritti, by occupation, they'd be, somehow or other they came up. I guess if there was some intelligent Shudra, they'd be brought up by their master, whoever it was, and they could flourish in that way.
One thing we don't see in history is a lot of changing of caste. That's what we propagate.
No. Generally it's understood that the son of a Brahmin would be a Brahmin. That's generally. Otherwise, why is that story there of... that story is there in the Upanishads. Who's that? Gautam and what's the boy's name?
Gautama, Satyakam Jabala.
Satyakam Jabala, yeah. So why is that story shows that it actually wasn't a very common thing. The fact that he accepted and it's mentioned in the Upanishads means that it was actually, it was showing the principle, but practically it wasn't very common. What was your question?
Well, Prabhupada said somewhere in the teachings of Lord Chaitanya that Lord Krishna is the complete whole and living entities like the living entities, we are also part and parcel of Krishna. And Lord Krishna has a pleasure potency known as Radharani. And since we are part and parcel of Krishna, we also must have Radharani. We also must have pleasure potency. And then we was on some different subject. So I was just thinking, since Krishna's pleasure potency is Radharani, everybody must have also pleasure potency. Is that possible?
We don't have our own pleasure potency, but we are imbued with the pleasure potency. The absolute truth is Anandamaya Bhyasa, joyful by nature. So because we are part and parcel of the supreme whole, we also share in that pleasure principle. Not that because we are part and parcel of Krishna, and Krishna is God, we is part and parcel, therefore we also have our own part and parcels and our own potencies. No. There is similarity between the jiva and Ishvara. But it's not, there are certain similarities, but not in every way. Although in one sense it could be said that the jiva in the material world, he's imitating God. So he also sometimes in Bengal someone would introduce, this is my Shakti, means his wife. No, it's not, it's not that he's trying to say that I'm Bhagavan and this is Radha. Not like that. It's just language, that's all. And that's also said that behind every great man is a woman. So a woman that's also accepted. A woman is the Shakti of the man. Prabhupada comments on that most men need a woman to get them going. They need some Shakti. They need some inspiration. Someone who's inspired from the platform of the transcendental Shakti, Paraprakriti. And he doesn't need inspiration from woman. But someone who is not getting so much inspiration from the Antaranga Shakti, then he takes some inspiration from the Bahiranga Shakti, who is personified by woman. So that is understood. Why will the Kshatriya perform his duty and conquer? It's all, the woman gives inspiration to do all these things. Why do people work hard in a factory to maintain their family? The wife is there. Hey, go out and get some money. Bring some money. Otherwise, who's going to work? Why should you do? So that wife is called Sadharmacharini, Sahadharmacharini. She performs, in Vedic culture, that is dovetail. So that all one's activities should be for the sake of dharma. So the wife performs. Together they perform religious activities. That means in Vedic culture, when we say dharma, that doesn't mean only performing pious sacrifices or something like that, but everything, your work, everything you do. You have your Swadharma, Brahma Dharma, Kshatriya Dharma, Vaishya Dharma, Shudra Dharma. And for women there is 3 dharma to serve the husband. So she serves him, she inspires him also. A bad wife will inspire a man to become a rascal. A good wife will inspire a husband to be saintly, righteous. So woman is Shakti. Very powerful. But that we should understand. The point is that we're only imitating. We are not Purush. And the living being in a female body is not Prakriti in the way they think they are. We are all Prakriti or meant to be enjoyed by Krishna. So in illusion we may appear to have our potencies and our expansions, like our children, our property, but actually nothing belongs to it. It's all Krishna's potency. Nothing is mine, everything is Krishna's.
Even the spiritual master is also encouraged by spiritually advanced disciples.
Spiritual master is encouraged by spiritually advanced disciples, yes? Yes, why not?
Not only the...
Yes, Prabhupada said so many times, I'm inspired, I'm encouraged. And then he said, if you don't print my books fast enough, then I become discouraged. He was going ahead, translating more and more, and the disciples weren't keeping up with the printing, with getting it, because it's a big job to go from Prabhupada's dictation to come out with Srimad Bhagavatam, with Sanskrit fonts and then English diacritical marks and fully edited and printed without mistakes. It's big paintings, it's a big job. So when the disciples were falling behind, Prabhupada said, I become discouraged. So then he ordered 17 books are due to be printed, 15 volumes of Chaitanya Charitamrita, 2 of Bhagavatam. Do it in 2 months. Impossible. Impossible is a word in a fool's dictionary. Do it. They did it. Otherwise, one book with so many people working would normally take at least 6 weeks or 2 months. What happened, Prabhupada was he was translating Bhagavatam. So Bhagavatam, he was seeing 12 commentaries in Sanskrit and 1 in Bengali, his own Guru Maharaja's, and then he was giving the commentary. So, but whereas for Bengali, he was just seeing this Bhaktivinoda Thakur's commentary, which is very short, and his own Bhaktistan Sastra Thakur's commentary. So it's much easier in that sense to do. And also Bengali is much easier language than Sanskrit. Sometimes in Sanskrit, Prabhupada had his assistants to help with Sanskrit. So Prabhupada was just